185milessouth.com.
Smash that Patreon button.
185 Miles South, a hardcore punk rock podcast. All right, it is an honor to be joined by Barile of SSD. What's up, dude?
How you doing?
What is going on? Okay, Al, you're a original first wave hardcore dude, and so I'm always curious, like, how do you get into like punk in the first place, and really, what is like the first record or band that you connect with the most?
You know, it started by exploring music and really getting my license. You know, when I got my license to drive, it opened a big door to, you know, explore live music, and I'd say college radio, you know, like my exploration of college radio. That's how I found it, you know, and then just kept on, you know, you find stores. We have stores called Newbury Comics out here. There was like maybe 2 stores that sold like kind of alternative music that, you know, not your typical stuff that, you know, was you know, on big radio, small radio stuff. And so taking a ride in my car to go to those stores and then, you know, checking out singles and then, you know, albums. And that was my way I found it.
And what was like the first band that like you really connected with? Like, oh, this is like a punk band. This is different. And I love this. And like, I'm into it now.
I think I was into like, you know, a lot of UK subs records maybe. And Buzzcocks, trying to think of the first bunch of music. I'd say like English stuff, definitely Discharge, Buzzcocks, Ramones, definitely. Americans, you know, American Clash. Those were the first, and then that led to, you know, when I found the first DC record, you know, the whole Discord records and Black Flag on the West Coast, you know, Circle Jerks, Dead Kennedys. So those are the bands that I found, you know, from that and those record store visits that were inspirational or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that Discord stuff in 81, like that's very quick for you to like get it and then want to pick up a guitar and start a hardcore band. Is that really how it broke down?
Wasn't Discord first? I mean, maybe I just by saying to you that you put it first. I meant I was just kind of giving you the whole thing. I'd say it was like the West Coast stuff. Black Flag was the first band to tour, and Dead Kennedys. So I actually went to like I think I went to a Black Flag show, and that's when I met Rollins, and he was selling like Teen Idols out his back. I think Teen Idols was out, and SOA, he was selling it like out front. And so that's how I found those Discord records. So it wasn't like sequentially that order, but you know, that's when I found those records.
Yeah, and then how immediately do you want to pick up a guitar and like do your own band?
I had already picked up the guitar before that.
Okay.
I picked up the guitar maybe a couple of years before that, maybe right around graduating high school or right around maybe the last my last year in high school. I'd say the Ramones made me pick up a guitar, you know, and you know, I was looking to join a band relatively quick, actually. You know, I only taken maybe a couple lessons, and I realized, you know, I didn't know how far the lessons were going to take me. I just realized, okay, it's time for me to just learn how to create my own style and move on, you know, and then that's when then shortly thereafter, somewhere after that, maybe I found those Discord records. But yeah, I don't think the Discord records made me pick up a guitar. It was definitely the Ramones.
What do you remember about SS Decontrol coming together, like forming as a band?
Well, I met the bass player at a Dead Kennedy show. I met his sister, actually. And then his sister told me, hey, my brother, plays bass. And so it was right. It was a good connection right there. I mean, just at this one show where the Dead Kennedys played. And then I think I had also taken an ad out we had a local weekly newspaper, like alternative weekly newspaper. And, they took ads for bands and stuff like that. So I'd taken an ad in the band for, looking for a band. And that's how I found the drummer, Chris Foley. And so that's kind of how it took off. Meeting, that one connection with Jamie, the bass player, and then the drummer, Chris. And then I think we originally had another singer, but only for like maybe even in theory. Like I don't think we actually practiced with him ever. He just was kind of around us at the time, but he never really materialized to be our singer. And then I think, Jamie had met Springer a few times in shows in Boston, and someone suggested Springer somehow, and that's how Springer found our way. So that's basically it right there.
And what do you remember about like those early practices? Like I love when guests can like kind of like paint the scene, right? Like what was your practice space like? Where were you practicing?
The very first practice was I remember at Jamie's, like in his garage, and it was pretty crude. Like I think Chris came with his drum set, which just in itself was kind of freaky, just that he lugged his drums just for this one practice. And like I said, it was very crude. Jamie's garage was not set up for practicing in, and but I think we wrote a song or something, maybe one or two songs, pretty bad. And Springer was there for that. So that's in my recollection is the real official first practice. And then I realized that wasn't going to be productive, So then we started working on finding a practice space, and then we had found a place in my hometown that there was rumors of a building there that had bands practice. So I kind of made some inquiries, and we got a place there. I don't think we actually had I don't even know if we officially even had a practice there, and found that not to be too productive because there was a lot of local kids and bands that were just using it as kind of like a party spot almost, and like I think we got jumped the first weekend we there. So that's why I don't even remember plugging the amps in. I mean, maybe we had them plugged in one day. We got jumped out front, and I realized that wasn't going to work. So at that time, I made an appeal to my mother, asking if hey, could we use our cellar to practice? And that's when things get serious, So the whole first month we must have messed around and got nowhere. And then finally, when we got that practice space in my mother's basement, that's when we became serious. And Chris, took his drums and kept them in my cellar, which in itself is a big commitment because. I always at the time was thinking like, geez, he's not going to be able to have his drums at home. Like it's one thing when you take your guitar to practice, come to practice with your bass or your guitar, but his drums are going to have to stay there, and so it's a huge commitment. I'd say that's why I give him a ton of credit because he came from a long ways away, like almost an hour. He got on the train, took him probably an hour and a half to get here, and he had to leave his drums at my parents at my basement. And so I almost give him credit. Like if he had like pulled out early on, I don't know what we would have done. I mean, we would have kept on looking for another drummer, but I'd say his ability to kind of stick with it is what kept the band together. Like I mean, in theory, because if he decides that he's not gonna. This isn't working for him, it's too far away, or he's not going to leave his drums there, then it's not going to work out. And he was by far the best player in the band. And I think, if you started a band, you need a good drummer. Like if you don't have a good drummer, you're swimming up the creek, like you're going against you need a good drummer. So we had a good drummer. So we had really the first step in being halfway decent, and the next step is trying to write songs. And, we were trying to make a record, like from the very beginning. My goal was to make a record, and it's kind of crazy because we haven't done anything, but I was like, dead set on making a record, from probably that first practice on, so I don't know how to write songs, so I had to try to learn how to write songs I don't even call them songs, but I had to learn to do something, and I took that responsibility, because I don't think drummers, he wasn't writing the song, and, the bass player could write songs, but, I think it's the guitar player's responsibility. So that's pretty much a quick summary of how we got to get going.
What was like pushing Chris to drum so fast? So, because like if you think about 82, like SSD is basically the fastest band. Maybe the Negative Effects demo at the same time.
Well, we started off, like I don't know, like when I think when you can't play that well, playing fast isn't that bad. Like I don't know, you just kind of, it's a blur. So I think that directive came from me, the songwriter, the guitar player. Like, I'd play, okay, here's where we're gonna go, whatever like that, and he'd just, when you're working with a drummer to come up with the speed or whatever tempo of a song, you can either say, okay, no, play it just slower, because later on I formed one more band after that, and I learned, similar technique working with a drummer, but I would like, give him the tempo that I kind of felt the song needed, So it was like just experimenting with tempos, and he could play fast, and but I'll tell you, we didn't stay fast very long, because when we started playing out with Gangrene and Jerry's Kids, I remember thinking to myself, man, they play fast a lot better than we do, and I immediately pulled back the throttle, and I said that this isn't what we do best, like maybe it's my guitar playing or whatever, but I didn't think we were that great of a, but I know what you're saying. We definitely started off pretty fast, but it wasn't that. As soon as we got exposed to those other local bands, I pulled back the throttle. I remember consciously seeing them at this place, the Media Workshop, and saying, this isn't going to work. Like I can't compete with these guys. These guys play much better fast than I do, and later on, now I learned 40 something years later that they were practicing like every day, like 4 hours a day or something, like we would practice maybe, I think 2 or 3 times a week, maybe 2 would be the goal. I'm not sure if it was 3 times a week. Somewhere in my head, I think it was 3, but I don't think that would have worked because they came so far away. I know Sunday was a big day for us to get a lot done. And then I think we had one day and one weekday that we practiced. And we were pretty good about making those. Like we didn't blow off. I'd say Springer might not show up for some of the practices, but the 3 of us, the guitar, bass, and drums, we were pretty good about making all the practices, That's why I give Chris the big credit, and then Jamie gets a ton of credit because he had to pick him up. He would meet him at this MB. We have this station. I mean, it's like our train station is called MBTA, and he would meet him at this station called Wellington. And so Jamie would have to wait there, probably for an hour sometimes because the train wasn't always reliable, and Chris had to commute so long. So he had to wait there, to pick him up. And then, I just had to wait at my house, waiting for those guys to finally get here, So my job was, to sit there and wait for them, which wasn't a big deal. I mean, I used that time to try to write, but they had to get there. So, huge. I think any band, that's a big thing, like how you make sure everyone gets there, You got to have people that are committed to making it there.
Do you do demos before the first 12-inch?
We go, well, you might call it a demo. We go to record at this place, Oak Grove Studio, just because, but all these, that was to make a radio tape, let's say, and that was kind of a disaster. equipment was speeding up and slowing down. They had bad equipment, so that was like a throwaway. We recorded like 3 songs, and I think How Much Art might have been one of them. I'm not sure. I think for some reason that sticks in my head, and a couple other ones or whatever that I don't think ever made it to the record. And so that there was you could call that a demo, I guess, And because I remember, I think from that radio stations, they had these things called carts, which I was always like, trying to outthink everything. So instead of like, I didn't know what to hand them, but I asked people, what do radio stations get? And they said, oh, they take carts, So I remember going, and I went to some store and I bought these carts. They were like big 8-track tapes almost, And so I remember recording those carts. That's actually the first demos I would say that we had on these carts.
Do you still have those?
I don't think so. I think I gave those to Curtis when he was making Power. Power was a compilation of a lot of recordings. I think I gave them to him. Someone got them. I mean, I remember where they were for the longest period of time, and I know they weren't there. My mother died a few years ago. I know they weren't there anymore, so I assume I gave them to someone.
What do you remember about recording The Kids Will Have Their Say?
Okay, The Kids Will Have Their Say was an interesting, so pretty much like I said, we were trying to make that record from the very, that was our goal. We didn't just go and screw around. I mean, we were always trying to make this first record. I mean, it didn't have a title then. So we recorded maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 times at the studio called Radio Beat. And I didn't hear like what I was thinking we should sound, what I thought we sounded like wasn't coming out on tape, So I was like, geez, I don't know about this. This isn't really, I could have said, oh yeah, put this on the record, but I was like, yeah, I don't think this is good enough to go on the record. So we kept on trying, that's why the first time at Radio Beat, and the second time at Radio Beat, finally, I was kind of almost giving up on it, but I don't mean giving up really, for real. I just meant I gave up on Radio Beat, and I said, let's go to another studio. We picked this other studio. I think it's called Active Sound. It was really in the guy's father's house, really. We have a lot of house things running through our background. So we recorded at this guy's house, and that's the recording on Kids Will Have to Say. Yeah,
and it's recorded over like kind of a few months, right? How are your feelings like throughout it? No,
I don't think so. I think it was recorded over a couple, maybe. I think it didn't. It wasn't a few. I think it was pretty quick because his father was yelling at him. I remember when we were recording, so that wasn't going to keep up. I remember we're downstairs, he's upstairs. This guy's name's Larry. His name's Larry something. I can't think of his last name right now. And he was upstairs with the machine. I don't even remember seeing the tape machines. I stayed downstairs, which is kind of messed up, thinking I didn't even go upstairs when I think about it now. And he's fighting with his father about, what's all this noise being made and stuff like that. And we're just trying to get this record made, and we plugged away and, it sounded better. So that ended up being the Kids Will Have to Say. It was a tough thing. It was a tough thing to do. We took us, like I said, 3 or 4 recording sessions to get it done.
Yeah, you do it as a split release with Discord. Like, how does that come about?
Well, that just comes about. Like, I figured I was going to do it on my own record label. That was never in doubt. But I just asked Ian, I said, hey, for some reason I got this idea. I don't even know people were doing split records at the time. Maybe I got the idea from if he had done it. Maybe I don't know. Did Discord Records do a split record at that point? I don't know. I just asked him to kind of lend his name to us to give us like instant credibility. I felt, he had already put out a couple singles. He hadn't put any albums out yet. I don't think at the time. I don't even know what. Did it have a number? Like, was it Discord something and a half?
I think it's like 7.5.
Is it?
I think so.
Yeah. So whatever he had up to that point, whatever. I just thought it was going to lend credibility. So I figured when I went to go sell them to distributors and stuff that, having that imprint next to ours would be helpful. That was really the only, there was no financial deal, and there was no, I think I just gave him a box of records in trade for that. I think I sent him pretty sure I just sent them a box of the kids will have the says in return for using that. And I don't think that was even negotiated. Just, when the record finally came out, I sent him a box of records, I wonder if I did, because maybe he's got the whole box still. I don't even know, probably does.
How did you feel when that record was out and it was like in your hands? Because like this is something you said you've been working to make happen since like the very first practice. So now you have it in your hands. How do you feel?
Yeah, I felt relieved, I guess would be the best description. I mean, it certainly wasn't, we didn't think it was the best. Like, I don't know. I didn't go around the room and ask everyone, hey, what do you think about it? What do you think about it? I just know what I felt about it. And I didn't think it was, wasn't my proudest moment. I just felt like it was, I was proud to put it out, like I was happy to put it out, happy that we finally, you hold it in your hand and I remember going to pick the records up. We went and picked them up at the record plant, which was in New Jersey, and definitely get a sense of accomplishment, huge sense of accomplishment. But as far as like what was on the record, I wasn't so thrilled with the recording, and the way it turned out. But I was thrilled that we had a record out, because that's what our goal was, So, and we did it pretty much within, I think, 6 months of the band being together, or maybe a year. I don't know. I have to look at the dates. I don't know. I just know that was our goal, and we accomplished our goal, and we didn't have much help. Definitely a little bit of help as far as like, our producer, Mike Bastarash, gave us the names of the record plant and things like that. But we pretty much, it was a do-it-yourself project.
You saying like you're not thrilled with how it sounded at the time, like has that shifted in the last 40 years? Like now that, so many people have like affirmed to you that it's a classic American hardcore record?
No, just like, cause it didn't sound like what I hear, and this is probably, I would think other bands feel the same way here. When you practice, or when you play together, or when you play live, but you just practicing, you hear something, right? And it's usually very loud, ends up turning out pretty loud, but it didn't translate to the tape, or the vinyl. It's not what I heard, so that's the best way I can explain it. I think people in bands would know what I'm saying, some people might have had, more help in making the record, and maybe it sounded better for them or something. Like, like put it this way, albums that sounded great to me were like the Adolescence record or something like, I don't know, Black Flag might be, I don't know if they were happy with their records or not, but I'm sure the Adolescents must have been very happy with their first record, maybe not, I don't know, but it's, so it's really sounding what you hear when you with your ears, and I didn't hear with my ears what was on that record, so that will never change, it doesn't sound like what we played live,
Is that just a feeling you have, or is that something that like you can, like if I was the greatest engineer in the world right now and we were like still working on that record, could you say like it's missing this? Like, can we figure out how to do this or no?
It's a good question. I don't know. Like, I've learned a lot more about recording, and the people, our producer and engineer, like at the time, I don't think they, this is no reflection on them, but I don't think they knew that much about what they were doing. I was concentrating on playing, I wasn't concentrating on recording. I knew nothing about, when I walked in that studio door where the tape machine was, that was so far over my head. Okay. I wasn't even ready to take that on. So I had to just take on playing the music. And that was a big challenge in itself. I wish I had, if we were maybe taking a little bit slower and I learned, and I had taken time to learn the recording process, maybe it would have been different. Because I think the use of compressors and things like that, there's things that, I would have done differently, knowing what I know now, about recording, because I think in my records I made with the band Gauge, I recorded those and I learned a lot about recording, so I'm not sure that we knew what we were doing, or the guys that I had helping me knew what they were doing. There was a studio engineer there, but he wasn't really familiar with our music necessarily, So I think if you're dealing with like an engineer who's not really familiar with the music, then he can kind of steer it in the wrong direction. I think those West Coast bands had good engineers and good producers, and a lot of good sounds came out of them.
I think the difference is none of those bands are playing as fast though. So like literally, if you think about when you go in to record this record, no one knows how to record something that sounds like that because it's never been recorded before, right? Like you literally are the blueprint that people are going to base off how to record fast music on.
Maybe I never look at it as a fast, slow thing, because we had slower songs on that first record. How Much Art, Please Speed, we had a lot of, we didn't, we wrote some songs that was all fast, but there was, there was some other songs that had slow parts to them,
That's true. Yeah.
I always thought we were a powerful band, like that's how I described it. That's why the record on Tang was called Power. Because if you would ask me how I would describe us, and what I was looking to get from those recording sessions was to capture the power. Okay. So it wasn't speed. It was to capture the power. So if you want to say, you want to link power and speed together, but it was to capture the power, and I don't think I did that in that first record, And I think the second record captures it a lot better, That's my opinion, Second record definitely captures it better,
Yeah, we'll get there. I have that almost exactly word for word written down like that. But I want to stay in 82. So
yeah.
What's your take on the This Is Boston Not LA comp that comes out in 82?
I don't even own it. I'll be truthful, So I can't really speak for it that much, I don't own it, and we were asked to be on it, and I chose not. I chose just to concentrate on what we were doing, and at the same time, I wasn't happy with what was coming out of our, like I just said, about what was coming out of the tape reels from our recording session. So I certainly wasn't prepared to give them a bunch of songs that didn't sound right, on hindsight, maybe I should have taken some of their money to kind of go into a bigger studio or whatever, give it a shot with their money. I could have played it different, and I'm not saying I wouldn't have. On hindsight, I wouldn't have played it differently. But just early on, I decided, no, we're going to concentrate on our record. I'm sure we were the first band they asked to be on that record. Later on, when it took shape with that name, I would have never been on that record if that was the name of the record. No way. I would never been on that record with that name. But just initial discussions.
Why is that, Al? Do you feel like
I don't like the name? It's stupid. It's a stupid name. We're not. Why are we why are we trying to compare ourselves with LA? It's just so stupid.
Yeah, I feel you.
It's like we're who we are. We're not. We're not comparing ourselves with anyone. It's the stupidest name I ever heard of. So there's no way we would have the name of that. What is it? If we had decided to be on it, that would not have been the title of the album. So, it would have had a different title. I guarantee you that, and I probably would have had some say in picking it,
Yeah. What was a regular like SSD show like in Boston in 1982? Like how many kids were showing up? What was the crowd like? What was the vibe?
These are really DIY shows, we're talking like, in places that didn't have sound systems and anything, we had set out like we weren't going to play any clubs, we were going to do strictly all ages shows. So there was only like two places that we started out playing. We played this place called the Gallery East, which was an art gallery, but it was in a space that really wasn't even set up for an art gallery. It was like just all concrete. It was a warehouse, really, way too much concrete. And if you know anything about what concrete does to music, it just, waveforms just bounce all over the place. So it was a terrible sounding room, just the reflections of the waves bouncing off the walls. So sounded terrible. I knew early on it was kind of a sacrifice we had to make, to have that freedom and that great feeling of our own space, but it just didn't have the acoustics, but it made up for it in feeling what it lacked in acoustics, And then there was another place called Media Workshop, which was like on the 12th floor of a kind of like a, I don't know what you call it, like maybe another art gallery, maybe kind of warehouse type deal. And that had better acoustics. This was so hard to get to. It was like so many flights of stairs. I don't think they even had an elevator to carry everything up. So that was so those were the two DIY spaces. And then trying to think, they carried us through the first bunch of years. We played the Rat. There's a couple of clubs. We played the Rat one time. Just I don't even know why we did it, and it didn't work out well. And I think we played the Channel a few times when they started doing all ages shows. We kind of got that worked out there. So once they started doing all ages shows, we played a few clubs.
There was also a spot called Streets in Alston.
Yeah, I was going to do that while I was uttering those last few words. I was thinking of Streets. We played there, and there were some successful shows. It wasn't an all ages space, so we had to make some compromises because, I think Black Flag had played there, and either we were on the bill. I can't even remember if we ever headlined the place. But
you played with Bad Brains on.
Yeah, so I wasn't going to give up playing those kind of shows, like when Black Flag played in Bad Brains, when they asked us to play, I was going to play them, even though they weren't all ages shows. So, I definitely made some compromises that other people didn't make compromises, but we made them if the show was a great show, and I'd do it again today, it wasn't going to, I thought, would make, who are we to make a stance and just say, oh, we're only going to play all ages shows? It was like a process to get these club owners, the bookers at the clubs to kind of open up to that concept, because there was none of it before us, there was no all ages shows, I know before I was in the band, when I wanted to go, I wasn't even old enough to get in the club. I would have to go to one of these art gallery spaces to see, call it alternative music, So, certainly I knew it was going to take a while to get them to open up to all age shows,
Yes. So in September that year, it's with Bad Brains and the Undead. And then in December, it's two shows, like a matinee show and a night show, Black Flag and Bad Brains. So that's insane.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we made every one of those shows. I might have been sick one of those. I'm not sure. I remember for some reason I look back on it. I think there was a couple shows that I got sick on and I couldn't play, in our whole career, we'll call it career or whatever, a whole thing. I think there might have been one or two shows that I couldn't make it, You
start playing out of town really early, even in 81, you played A7 in New York. What was that like playing out of town at that time?
It's great. It's great. Yeah, we loved getting out of town, because just expanded our reach, So yeah, that first show at A7 was awesome. It was kind of wild, get loading up a van and heading to New York and stuff. But it was fun. It was exciting, and we were always looking to expand our where we played. So anytime we got the chance to play outside of Boston, if it made sense, we played it. We didn't take every offer, but if it made sense, we took it.
Yeah, you played New York a bunch in 82. How much truth is there to the Boston New York rivalry at that time?
I don't think there was any rivalry. if if there was any rivalry, it was like to me it was always a sports thing, really. Like Boston and New York. You're coming off of like some tough Red Sox Yankees series and stuff. So I don't even know if the other people were into that. Other people in my crew were into that, but I have lasting images of Greg Nettles like punching Bill Lee and ruining him and stuff like that. So that's when I think of the rivalry, I think of those that's the rivalry I think of. It wasn't a rivalry with us in New York hardcore scenes or something. Uh, and if I was to if I caused any of that by talking about the rivalry, but to me it was a sports thing.
The SS Decontrol sound shifts kind of from a more speed approach to a more power approach in 1983 with your 12-inch Get It Away. Like out of those 7 songs, only one has like that fast blazer, speed on it. Was this a conscious effort or was it a natural evolution? And then now with you speaking about the kids will have their say that way, like wanting it to come off more powerful, was like the moving away from speed like a reaction to that? Like you're getting more power in like the more mid-tempo songs?
Well, I told you that I had those moments at this media workshop shows where I saw Gangrene and Jerry's Kids playing really fast, and I said, I'm gonna slow it down, So that's when it happened, I don't know, if that was the point where I started writing the Get It Away album, probably, right around that period. So that's why we slowed down, because of that conscious effort that I didn't feel like a bunch of other bands started playing really fast and doing it well, So that's when that change happened, It wasn't when we had the second guitar player. He had nothing to do with it. He would have played fast if I had said, hey, we're going to write. And if I had said, hey, we're going to write an album, play faster than Jerry's Kids and Gangrene, they would have all went along with it, It just, I felt it wasn't what we did best. Like the goal was always to do what we did well, to maximize what we did, the best, right? You don't want to stick with something you don't think you're doing that great, So that was really when that thought happened. So, I'd say, if I'm trying to look back on that record, trying to think which song in order I wrote first or something. I can't really remember, but that batch of songs, they still, when I look back on them, they're not slow, They're still pretty fast, but they're more controlled, I would say, They're not out of control, and they just feel in control,
They're rhythmic. You're moving into like this rhythmic, powerful, almost like a tribal feeling on them, as far as like just being blazers.
That's a good description then. That's what we're after, We're after a powerful sound, Not just going to go in there. And other bands were still thinking like, those bands, I don't think they thought about this, but I did, and I said, I just don't think I can play. Gangrene was still ripping it as fast as they could. Their goal was to keep on playing fast and faster and faster. I was pulling it back at that time,
Yeah. What do you remember about the recording sessions for Get It Away?
We'd moved up to 16 track studio. So I look back on it. It's not that I don't think I needed the extra tracks, but now you probably put eight or 9 tracks of drums on there. Before, when you're an 8-track, you're probably putting 4 tracks of drums. So the drums were probably recorded better. And at that point, we had a second guitar player, so there was more layered guitars. Now we had him and me, and much more laid guitars. So we got to kind of create more of a wall of sound with the guitars, and then vocals probably just one. We didn't have many backup vocals, so probably just 1 track of vocals. So that's what 16 tracks allowed us. Would have been nice to get more ambitious and try. Now that I had 16 tracks, I still wasn't like feeling comfortable in the studio. So it wasn't like I went in there and said, wow, now I got 16 tracks. Let me explore, because here's the other thing. The whole time that this recording's going on, I'm thinking about the clock. And I think this studio is now like probably like $30 an hour, or maybe $40 an hour or something like that. I don't know. Not 50, but somewhere between 25 and 40, I bet, an hour. And I'm paying for it, like it's coming out of my money, like I'm working my ass in the machine shop, So that's what I'm thinking. Like, I'm thinking like, I can't waste money here, like we gotta be somewhat efficient here. Of course, if the band made any money playing out, which we didn't, that would go into this recording fund, But in general, I think I used a lot of my money, my own personal money, to record, And so I was thinking that, that was in the back of my mind, that I didn't want to, it's hard to use your own money to record when you know how blood and sweat you're working for it,
That first yell that Springer does on the song "Get It Away" is like so iconic. Do you remember, like, is that first take? Did you do a bunch of takes?
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah. How does it come together with having Pusshead do the art for the LP, the 12-inch?
Good question. I believe I made that connection from Glenn Friedman to Pusshead by, I come in contact with Glenn Friedman from, we played, I could be wrong on this, but this is what I believe, from playing some live shows. And then I think Glenn put me in touch with him, and I asked him if he could draw the cover, like I kind of came up with the concept of that first album, cover, but I didn't really have anything for the second one, although "Get It Away" was an anti-smoking song. So, I wanted the title to be "Get It Away." So I knew that. So I needed something that was fitting for an anti-smoking song, or like kind of that kind of grimy feeling, So I said to him, "Hey, can you draw something?" Now, he was mainly known for his like monsters and things like that. So I wanted to kind of put him in a different place, So I said, "Hey, can you draw a street in New York with all a bunch of grime and, empty beer cans and trash, and just like, because it was funny. I used to get this, of all our trips to New York, I used to get this impression that like the streets would never change. They'd always be dirty, like I would come back like 6 months later and same street would be, the same trash would be in the same exact spot, They'd never moved. And I used to think that was funny, that, how it just like was such a big city that they couldn't ever clean up like a street, They had so much to concentrate on. They never could clean up the street. So I got that impression. I said I wanted to draw this street in New York. That's what the street is,
Yeah. Do you think he captured it well?
Oh, I love it. I love the cover, Yeah. I remember seeing it. I thought a lot of people might not like it or might not understand it, but like, how else am I gonna capture something that's like around the concept of "Get It Away"? It had to be grit, grimy, trashy, and that I couldn't take a photograph of that, really. I mean, we could have. I don't think it would have come out that right. I mean, we could have went to that street in New York and just taken a photo, but I don't think it would have really translated that well. So, it's somewhat cartoonish, and I liked it,
In 1983, you play your first show outside of the East Coast. It's August 6th, 2024, Santa Monica Civic, opening for GBH. But before we get to that show, what are your memories of like your trek out to California?
Well, it's like other bands do tours. My idea was just to drive straight to California, and I don't know, I'm a weird guy or something. I get a lot of crazy ideas, but I just was thinking, like, if we play a couple shows on the way out there, something will happen and we'll break something, or I'll break my hand or something. Because every time I played, I always thought that might be the last time we played. I always had that mentality that, this might be our last show. Like, I just felt like, it was like so chaotic that it might be the end, and something might happen. So I had that same mentality going to the West Coast. I was like, I was really hell bent on making it to the West Coast, and I didn't think playing to the West Coast was a good bet. So we were just going to drive there straight, you know.
Yeah, what are your memories of that first show, the Santa Monica Civic? It's a legendary venue, and then playing when the English bands came out, those shows were huge.
Yeah, when we made it there in I think 2 days from Boston, maybe 3 at the most, but I think it was 2 days. And first time I had been to California, just seeing California and like palm trees and everything. When we showed, we got there at nighttime, I remember, and we pulled up on Santa Monica Beach because we didn't know where else to go. You know, we just went from East Coast to West Coast, so we went coast to coast. You know, we pulled up on their beach, and then I remember the morning came up, and I just like, wow, we made it here. This is amazing. Then we went over to the venue, that next morning or whatever, and just we saw like this big hall. We're like, wow, man, this is incredible. You know, we're gonna play this big place. You know, so it was just very awestruck by it. You know, that we were gonna play this big show in California.
And then, what was the show like?
It was a great show. We played really well. I just know we played well. I was happy with the performance, and we held our own against GB. What did we play with GBH? I think, yeah,
GBH.
We held our own and did pretty good. I thought, that's all. That's what I remember from it. Big crowd, and they liked us. Like there was. I felt a lot of love. I didn't feel like they were mad. They were like I don't know. Is Boston Not LA come out by that time?
Yeah, it came out in '82. This is '83.
Okay, so I didn't feel any negative feedback from that. No. I felt a lot of good feelings from it. It was a good show.
You play a bunch of shows in that run in Southern California and Northern California, and you're out here for a couple weeks. What are your memories of that time?
Well, we drive up the coast. That was the whole deal. So I think then we went to like Santa Barbara next. Then they were all like kind of after the Golden Voice show at the Santa Monica Civic. These were all more do-it-yourself shows, like in halls, And then when we finally got to San Francisco, I think we played a couple clubs, Ruthie's Inn and maybe some other club or something. So it was just a run up the coast. It was great. All the shows were great. I don't remember any real stinkers. So it was a very successful way we did it. If I was to do it over again, I should have done more investigation on the West Coast. Like, maybe there would have been some other places to play. And, I didn't know. It was very do-it-yourself, but maybe I should have played some of those clubs that were there or something, to get a better feel for the LA kind of thing, that big place was great. But I'm saying, I think there was a lot of like, I hear that club like the Cuckoo's Nest, like I don't know about it now. I didn't know about it then, but I hear about it now. And I hear, just clubs like that, let's say the Cuckoo's Nest, like maybe I should have explored trying to play places like that. I don't know. That's my only regret, is I didn't try some of those places.
Yeah, the smaller clubs like the Cafe de Grand and Hollywood, stuff like that. The Cuckoo's Nest might already be done by '83.
Is it? Okay.
I don't know. I don't have it in front of me, but I get what you're going for is you could have played some clubs, like smaller shows.
Yeah, well, these were all kind of, I guess this was all set up by me just getting phone numbers from people, maybe I could have done more homework. I didn't know what was going on the West Coast, really, I didn't know I think we got the offer from Golden Voice, based on a phone call or something. I don't even remember. Maybe Glenn Friedman helped me. I think Glenn Friedman helped me get that show. But some people were helping us get the shows, and then I think we got some of those, from like Maximum Rock and Roll, we might have got some connections in the Northern shows, and the Santa Barbara show, we might have got from a band, one of the bands, I can't really remember, so I'm just saying maybe I should have done more homework and really understood, what, only because that we drove all the way out there. Maybe I should have got more of a feel for like some more of those shows. But I'm trying to think, maybe I was on a deadline. Like maybe I think I had to get back to work. It wasn't like we had forever to do it, but looking back on it, maybe I could have taken another week out there and played some more shows, because we drove such a long ways.
Hey Al, this question is kind of like an arrogant one, so we can skip it if you want. But what hardcore bands do you personally think were as good as SSD in like that 1982-83 era?
Well, we can never judge ourselves because it's just the way. Like even to this day, we all look at each other like we don't know how good we are or what we were. We don't know. We really don't. I'm saying that with sincerity. Like we don't know. Like we put these records out and stuff. I don't know. I mean, I'm flattered that people like them and put us and place us in some high regards, maybe. But in all sincerity, I don't know how good we were. I know I do. The one thing I could say I do know, when we got off stage, many times I thought that we were good enough to hold our own. That feeling I definitely know. So that's the only thing I do know. A couple of times we played with like say play with a Black Flag or play with Minor Threat. Some of these humongous bands. I want to say that the Bad Brains. Like I don't think we ever held our own on stage when we played with the Bad Brains, but we weren't flat. We weren't embarrassed off the stage. Put it that way. Whether we held our own when they were there, I don't know, but we weren't completely embarrassed off the stage. So I do know that when we came off stage that we did pretty good sometimes. That's the only feeling I can say. As far as the record goes, we were always trying to do our best. And I'm glad 40 years later, people look at the records and say nice things about them. But, we were always trying to capture that live sound, that feeling that I just told you about, coming off stage and saying, like all looking at each other like, wow, we did really good. That's the feeling that we were trying to get from the record, and I can't say we ever, after making a record, all sat around and said, wow, we did really good. Like, I don't know if we ever had that kind of feeling, but we did get it from a few live shows. Like, that Civic show, we know we did pretty good, and we played with the Dead Kennedys a few shows, and they were a very good band. And I think we held our own with the Dead Kennedys, that's a good one, I guess, to use as a measuring stick, like we played a couple big shows in Boston. We played a show with them out in New York, in Long Island. And I thought we didn't get blown off the stage, and like when you're in a hardcore band, these bands, they could blow you off the stage easy, like if you weren't on top of your game, you could easily get wiped off the stage, where like, you looked embarrassing, and I can say that we didn't have that feeling often. I can think of maybe couple times where I didn't think we did that good.
Can you remember specifically, like what were they?
Yeah, I remember one, and other people might think it was okay, but we played CBGBs with the Bad Brains, and I remember breaking my guitar and just a lot of technical difficulties. I jumped and came down, smashed the guitar, smashed my body. And I remember leaving the stage thinking, oh man, we didn't do so hot, That's one of the only ones that really strikes me that I can think of. I'll always think of, that. But I don't know, maybe other people who saw that show liked it, But it was like it was around Christmas time, I remember laying out after the show, laying out in the van and just had a bad feeling like, we didn't pull it off,
Yeah, your mind kind of went right to comparing yourself to the Bad Brains, like when that question was asked. Like, do you think that the Bad Brains were the best hardcore band?
Absolutely, and I don't, believe me, I don't compare myself to them. I'm just using them as a measuring stick, like is like the greatest live band. I think they struggled to make a great record. Um, I think some of their early recordings, that raw cassette probably got them the best. But it wasn't perfect. Like if you saw them live, like back then, and then listen to the recordings, I don't think they captured them as well as they could have. And then they went to record in the big studios with Rick Ocasek, and I don't think he did. I don't think he captured them as well. I mean, I remember when they went in with him. I remember thinking like, "Oh, he's gonna get them. He's gonna nail it." They're going into a 24-track recording studio. I'm like, he'll get it done. And then I remember listening to him when they came out and thinking, "Nah, he didn't get them." So I don't know what I'm interested in what they would say. Like I talked to him a lot around that period, but I never sat down with them and analyzed their recordings. I wonder if they thought that they were happy with all the recordings.
Yeah, what do you think about that? That like such a storied like engineer wasn't able to like capture like the sound of hardcore like how people thought he might have been able to.
I don't know if he can. Yeah, looking back on it, I mean, I remember when all of a sudden he showed up in one of they played this club, and all of a sudden he showed up. I remember we're all going, "Oh, it's Rick Ocasek. Oh, it's Rick Ocasek." And I don't know if he had made contact with him or he was just surprising him at this club. I don't know. But it was a day show. I remember it wasn't even a night show. He just showed up went in the side door, and everyone's whispering, "Oh, that's Rick Ocasek. Something's going on. Something's going on here." And then I remember they were recording with him. Maybe he didn't. Like there was part of me that always wondered if he was going to be able to connect with the music. Like I didn't even know how much of a recording engineer he was. Like how he was he was more of a producer, recordist than I'd known at that point. I just knew him from the Cars, and the Cars made great records. Like I mean, as far as getting the Cars, capturing the Cars, I think they did a great job. But that really wasn't him. I think that was another producer, that Roy Thomas Baker. I think might have been the guy that recorded him. I don't know, but anyways, yeah, it just was disappointing. It didn't capture the ferocity of them. It was I thought it was like yeah, it was tamed down somehow.
You came out to California again in 1984. You played one show at the Olympic Auditorium with Suicidal Tendencies. What were your memories of that trip? And did you have any impressions like before and after about punk shows at the Olympic? It's kind of like a legendary venue.
So we got that there was a new promoter popping up on the scene at that time, and Glenn Friedman got us that show. I look back on it, I'm not sure I should have, I'm not going to ever say I shouldn't have done something, but I mean, like Golden Voice was nice to us, and maybe I should have waited, for another show from them. But every opportunity that came up, I was going to take it, and we were going to fly for this show, so this promoter was going to fly us out. So that was a special opportunity. Like, Golden Voice never had mentioned doing that. I'm like, fly us out, man. That's going to be pretty cool. I mean, we had to do it on a budget. Don't get me wrong. We weren't just like going to spend, crazy money, but we flew on a budget airplane. I remember it was like People's Express at the time. So they were like a low cost carrier. And, but we flew out there for it. And so that's what I remember. It was like, we flew out, brought our guitars on the plane and everything. And we rented a drum set. And, yeah, it was pretty cool, to do it that way. I remember the show was chaotic on stage. A lot of people on stage. Like I didn't remember that from the first time around. Like all of a sudden, the stage had become like a playground for everyone, And I remember I found it a little bit difficult to play with so many people on stage, It just seemed kind of chaotic.
Do you feel that there's a shift there then, like between 83 and 84, like is LA turning? Is there like a different vibe?
I can't say, because definitely there was more, I won't call it another wave, but, definitely the suicidal wave was coming, So would you call that another wave? Maybe, maybe that was another wave, but definitely there was a suicidal thing on the move here. I mean, they came came really out of nowhere and had a big following to play. That's a big, that's a big arena too. And yeah, so that was a big sign that they were a big band on the scene.
I read an interview in MRR that was done at that show. I don't think it was with you, because it didn't seem like it was you answering. It just put SSD as the person answering. But that person who did the interview was saying that, like, someone had asked you, like, why don't you play any songs off The Kids Will Have Their Say at that time? And so I want to ask you, like, what was your mentality like to not play like the original songs in like 84?
Yeah, I'd say that it probably was me, because I made those decisions. Unfortunately, one of my faults I made was, so I never thought really about the people in the audience, but we were always one album ahead, so we already had written Get It Away, and that's maybe when, I don't know the time frame. I'm just saying, but I'm using an example here. So by the time we had the songs from Get It Away written and ready, we had already started to give up on not playing the songs from Kids Will Have Their Say. And it wasn't because we were trying to like stiff the fans or anything. It was just that we were all ready to make the next leap, as far as like, our musical journey, let's say, okay? So rather than go backwards, I was already thinking like, well, these songs are clearly better. We recorded them better or whatever. It's time for these songs. So that was the mentality, but it was wrong. I know I made a mistake, because the people are there, as a fan, the people are there to hear the songs that they get the record on, and I can even take that. I can even go back to the fact that I become less of a fan when I really was getting into this band thing. I stopped buying records, because I found a tendency that bands would like hear a record by another band, and all of a sudden they would change their sound, and it would sound like that. Like I really was after the purity of like the organic purity of like what our sound would be. So I had to like stop being a fan. So those great days of me buying the Discord records and buying the Black Flag records ended like somewhere like in '82 or whatever. And it kind of sucks because I really enjoyed those days of going hunting vinyl and discovering new bands and new music. But I had given up on that already because I had to, in order to kind of write the records for SSD. I did not want to fall into the trap of listening to like the new Black Flag record and having that affect my writing. So because I made that sacrifice, and it was a sacrifice, I was also so entrenched in like what we were trying to do that I didn't want to go backwards and play the songs that I thought we'd already kind of like already obsolete. We're already writing better songs. We started off not knowing what the fuck we were doing, and we started to figure out a little bit of what the fuck we were doing. And it made more sense to kind of play the songs that we knew what the fuck we were doing on than go backwards. But, looking back on it, because I lost in touch with like that fan mentality, that's where I was trying to go with this thing. Because I lost touch with the fan in me, like I'm saying, where I was like buying records and stuff, I kind of lost that. I lost that thing that I kept, that these people, only know you from the records that you have out, and that should be your concentration, But unfortunately, the way it worked with us, we were always one ahead, which, like regular bands don't do that, like big commercial bands are always not one ahead, they're one behind, like they don't outpace themselves, Like they're in no rush to release a record, right? Most bands, like on a commercial entity or whatever, they're in no rush to kind of get the next one out. Sometimes it's like 2 or 3 years, before before a record comes out. And we're in a rush to, we recorded it, boom, it was coming out, So it just was whole wrong way, you know.
It's pretty insightful, Al, right? Like, you saying you stopped being a fan, so you kind of lost empathy for like the fans
Lost touch
mentality.
with like what it meant to be a fan, and how I should have been thinking more on lines of that. Like I was thinking, here's what I was thinking. I was thinking, I know what's better than they know, okay, for what we're doing here. You know, like I'm going to give them the best stuff they got. And I do believe that. You know, I do believe the next album was better, like the material was better. And I used to think, I know what's best for them. I'm going to give them the best we got, you know? And it was the best we got. I wasn't wrong, but they just weren't ready. They weren't ready for it, you know? They didn't know it, you know? So that was the mistake, you know? You can't be like that, you know? Even though it's right, I'm sure every other band in the world thought the same thing, you know? I'm not unique to this. I'm sure Guns N' Roses probably thought that whatever record was better, you know? And I'm sure every band, whether it be like independent or a big band, always thinks the next record is better. You know, I know that traffic and fall into because on my next band, Gauge, in the '90s, I watched the other members of my band try to take me in that trap. You know, like the same trap that I came from. I watched them try to take me in that same trap where the new material is better. You know, and I used to sit back and laugh, kind of like, wow, they're trying to drag me back into that same trap. You know. And it's just, I think it's an easy trap to fall into, you know, unless you really remember what this thing is all about. It's about the fans, really, you know, you're playing for them.
How We Rock and Break It Up kind of get lumped unfairly together, I think. And How We Rock, like, definitely has some big moments. If you had a chance to redo that record, would you change anything?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think How We Rock's got a lot of flaws in it. Like I was messing around with my guitar sound on How We Rock, and I had this like effects rack that I was playing around with, and I think I screwed my guitar sound up, you know, with that's when I think about that, that's the biggest thing that comes to my ears. And that record was definitely a really good example of being one record ahead, you know. That record, when you think the record on the road, right? That was from our experience driving to California. That's really what captured that. So that song was written on the road pretty much right after coming off that 83 or 82, whenever you're saying we took the road trip, you know, out to West Coast. That's so, I mean, I just know kind of the pitfalls that I felt there was just mistakes made, you know.
Yeah. Do you feel like maybe if you would have trimmed the record a bit, like it would have been thought of like on the level of the first two records?
No, I just think it was always going to be flawed, you know, like it just the timing of everything and what I was thinking and stuff. Yeah, it just was a bad time to put a record out. I think it was just a flawed time, you know. I don't know if it ever had a chance, really. I mean, I'm not saying, I'm not going to, I mean, I respect people that say they like it, you know, whatever. I'm just saying that I look back on it at a time that I was messing around with my guitar sound, you know. So I can't help but think about that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, 84 is like a kind of a strange year, right? Because I look at it as the year that hardcore is kind of totally blown out. Like there's finally a million generic bands that are just playing fast. And so it kind of is a weird year for an original great band to put out a record that doesn't sound like straight hardcore.
I mean, it's a good description. I mean, there was a ton of bands coming, you know. They were coming quick, you know. You look in the Maximum Rock and Roll and stuff, you know. A lot of bands coming out, and there was, you know, I'll tell you, a lot of thoughts were like, I don't want to be a generic band, you know. I want to make sure that we have some type of original sound, and I don't want to be part of the generic, like, fall into the trap of being a generic band, you know. I remember that. So you're right. There was a lot of bands coming out around that time.
Yeah, because it seems like 83, everything is still like pretty notable. And then 84 is just, you know, there's a lot of bad stuff. Okay.
Absolutely. You got it nailed right there.
Yeah, Ian, I saw a show listing that you played 2 shows at the Olympic Auditorium in 1985. and they are 2 weeks apart. Is this accurate? Do you remember that at all?
No, that's not accurate. Played one show out there.
Yeah, so one must have been canceled. Let me tell you what they are, and maybe you remember. So it's listed as March 15th, 1985. That's Angelic Upstarts and Wasted Youth and you. And the other one is Social Distortion, Red Cross.
So Angelic Upstarts couldn't get into the country. So that show was supposed to be, they were supposed to, that was supposed to be the show. It ends up getting rescheduled to be Social D, So
Yeah.
that's that.
Yeah, do you get a fly out for that one?
We did fly out on that, yeah.
Yeah, sick.
Yeah, we got lazy, I guess, after that. That we didn't want to take. Yeah, we've become part of it. And that was a Golden Voice show, so they bought our plane tickets then, and I don't remember that carrier. Yeah, probably another cheap carrier. But airplanes weren't that. I mean, I think those flights weren't that expensive back then. They were like maybe a couple $100 round trip to go to California. I don't even know what it costs now. But
what do you remember about that show, like compared to like the '84 show?
People were like, people thought we were metal, people weren't digging it, I guess. Yeah, we weren't feeling the love that we felt in the previous shows, Like it's not like the one with suicidal tendencies. We started to kind of get a little bit of not great. Certainly wasn't the feeling that first Santa Monica Civic show. So it was like slowly going downhill, as far as the love goes.
Yeah.
But it was still people that came out to see us, I think, I mean, I definitely remember people coming out to see us, but we might have disappointed them, And we had already decided to break up at that point, pretty much. So it was like our swan song almost, We just wanted to kind of go out there one more time.
Your last show is in Boston after those two shows. It's April 6th, 1985 with Executioner and Spike Raven. Why do you decide to break up, and what are your memories of that final show?
I just remember being down in our basement, and if I do it over again, I don't think we should have broken up like that. But it was just with a feeling like we just like at this point, that West Coast, we didn't get a good vibe from it. People weren't like taking the same journey that we were musically, at that point. Like the music didn't seem like it wasn't super well received. I just felt we weren't embraced, so. And I also thought the guys might have been kind of wandering where they think maybe they were questioning things, So I thought it was like almost like a freedom, like if we broke up or something, like it would give us freedom. And my plan was to kind of keep on going, just like retool a little bit, and keep on going. I never planned to stop playing music really. And unfortunately, that's what it became for me. So that's why I say I look back on it, and I wouldn't have done that because I didn't want to stop playing music really, I mean, I did feel the need to kind of, quote, take a break or recharge my batteries because, we weren't we weren't super well received at that point. And, maybe I needed to reflect back on and figure out what we're doing right and wrong or something. But I, instead we chose to kind of break it up, and yeah, kind of a low point, breaking it up. I mean, it's too bad, because I missed. There's a lot of things I miss, and I think a lot of things I could have, if I could have done, I shouldn't have just walked away from it so easy. I should have tried to fight for it harder.
That night, like, how did you write the set list? Do you remember that at all? Like, was it
the last night?
Yeah. Was it like a normal SSD show from 85, or did you kind of write like, this is our final show, let's like take everyone through like the history of the catalog?
I don't remember that detail, but and I used to write the set list quite a bit. I'm not even sure if I wrote the set list that night, like maybe I let Springer write it, whatever. I didn't put as much thought, even though I knew it was our last show. I didn't put as much thought into like wow, this is our last show. Like we pretty much were in this rut of where we were, of where we were kind of like, like of what songs we were playing. Like we're probably playing, I told you how we were always one album ahead. We probably were playing all of Break It Up, like a majority of, what, you have the set list? Was there a lot of Break?
No, I don't. I wish
know.
I had it. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, it probably was a large concentration of the last songs we were working on, which was a mistake again, And we always played songs from Kids Will Say, but it was probably, it probably just was the same song, like, I mean, we never went deep going back, So anyways, yeah, I think I should have worked, if I go back on it, I would have went back and kind of worked harder on making the set list more fan based, audience based,
You did advertise that as the last show though. So like, what was it, an emotional night for you, or and was it an emotional night for the people in the room?
I don't think so. I don't remember it was emotional. It was like I felt it was like a relief almost, and I don't know why, but I just remember the feelings that, maybe just we needed a break, because people weren't really digging us, like it was like a low point for like, that record had come out and no one really loved the record. I think the record came out before that, right? Did it? I think it came out by then. I mean, I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
Anyways, people weren't digging the songs,
What were the last hardcore records that you listened to, like kind of before you lost interest and withdrew from the scene?
That's early on. Like, like it wasn't, just like I said, I had to consciously make that decision. Now, I think I'm not going to say they're right and I'm wrong, but I know that there's other bands that never stopped listening to music because they use the other bands for inspiration for their band. Like I said, and I wasn't going to go down that road. I mean, I can definitely hear other bands, and I say, "Oh, wow, they must have been listening to the last Circle Jerks record or whatever." Or I can hear the Circle Jerks or whatever, and say, "Wow, they were listening to this record," whatever. So I wasn't going down that road. So I'm trying to think, like, really my last really great time of being a fan. I mean, I can tell I can skip over some periods. Like I know from hardcore, like, loving hardcore, definitely checking out those Bad Brains records, the Okasek records, right? Those were probably like 85, 86 maybe.
Rock for Light, I think, is 83.
Okay.
And then.
So definitely was checking out all the Bad Brains stuff, I checked out all their stuff. But then, my next big leap of like what I thought was like, wow, I was like Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. I thought was like an amazing record, like that was the next musical point in my life where I was like, wow, this is really special, and then the next big musical jump was Nirvana, I didn't hear many hardcore records and maybe I should have like looked out more because, I at that point when we broke up, I was concentrating on my engineering degree, and it was getting really, really intense, at that point. It required a lot of time on my part, a lot of just a big concentration. So it wasn't really, I had a good excuse to not be like listening to music a lot, But whenever the date of mixing in those points, I remember when the Nirvana record came out, I started really listening to what was happening up in Seattle, and I really, really liked what I heard. I was like, wow, this is exactly what I was kind of shooting for. Like I you could really see that we were trying to work on the vocals, during our musical journey, and that's pretty much it. I'm trying to work on the vocal evolution, kind of, Like if you listen to the first record to the last record, you can see how we tried to work on Springer, really,
Yeah. As an original dude from like the first wave, what is your opinion on hardcore like becoming a legitimate genre of music that like never went away?
it's pretty cool. Like, I mean, I'm not saying I didn't think it would be or did think it would be. I'm glad, maybe I'd credit New York for that because, like, I don't consider New York really being part of that first wave as much, uh, like New York hardcore started maybe in that 80, I don't know, you guys would know, like, those 85, 86 kind of period or whatever. It became more metally, like people used to think we were metal, I think the New York hardcore was the metal kind of period, which is strange, that we got sacked with the tag, and I think they were doing it more than us.
You're merging different types of metal, right? Like you're a little more on the hard rock side and they're a little bit more on like the speed metal side.
Well, I definitely think we were hot, but I mean, we were tagged with metal, yeah, I would have accepted the hard rock tag, but people weren't seeing it that way. They were going, I remember people going metal, man, saying those words to me,
In 1992, you released the Power CD, which is basically the SSD anthology. But instead of putting the songs like in chronological order or like, together as records, you mix them up. What was your thinking with the sequencing of Power?
So the thinking was, I mean, I picked the songs that were going to be on. It was just supposed to, pretty much get what I considered the best songs that we had, like almost the greatest hits, if you want. I would never call it that because we're not a hit band or whatever. But take the best songs. As far as the sequencing goes, I'm not sure if I had a hand in the order. I don't think I really cared about the order. I cared about what songs, were on it, but I don't think I had too much of an interest as the order. So there was I don't think there was any reason to kind of, make them in a certain order. We weren't trying to like do an anthology or whatever.
It can be kind of a abrasive listen, right? Because it jumps all over the catalog. And
I get you. Now I see where you're going with. Right?
Yeah, well, you're well aware of like the different eras of SSD. You wrote them and you were there, right? And so like,
I never thought of that, to be honest. Now you put me back in that fan seat, where the jump might be too rough,
Yeah, it's like you're listening to something on shuffle almost,
Yeah, that was a mistake. Then now you calling out a mistake. I didn't think of that. Yeah,
I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Al. So
no, that's a mistake. That's a big mistake. Blame Curtis for that one because.
Okay, we'll put it all on Curtis and his layouts too. Although we got to give him credit, this is one of the greatest album covers. You know what I mean? It's so good.
What's the greatest album cover?
No, I said it's one of that Power. Like that photo on the front, like it's a great cover. Like if you're a kid going through CDs and you pull up that SSD Power CD, you're like, yes, I am interested in this. You know what I mean?
Great. I'm good. I'm glad. I don't know if I had a hand in picking that one out, but I mean, yeah, we tried to. Yeah, I don't remember the cover selection process at that point. I should have been more involved in that record, and that's another little bit of regret I have. Like, I mean, I definitely picked the songs and I definitely picked the title. And there were certain things I took an interest in, but there was things that I should have taken interest in and I didn't, and I regrets about that.
Al, before we get out of here, I wanted to ask you about the SSD book that came out. How much art can you take? Everyone can find it on the internet. Came out, Radio Raheem put it out and it rules. So what went into putting out this book and what else do you have going on? Well,
one of the biggest things that I took serious, from the day that the band ended was, to try to keep the band alive as best as possible. So, that's why we put out the Power record. It was just that, I noticed that albums had vanished from the shelves, and it was important that we remain kind of, alive in a sense. So we we put out Power. That's how Power came about. And then to continue, to keep that, to continue, we were had ideas about this book for a long time, and it took quite a ways for it finally come to fruition. But, we thought we were always, had a lot of great photographs. Certainly Philin Phlash, who's Springer's brother, was kind of an embedded photographer with us. And I really had hoped that at some point we could get these photos to see light, and it took like probably 30 years for it to happen. But it finally happened, and Nancy did a great job interviewing the band and trying to piece together, some key moments in the history of the band. I think she did a fabulous job. And that's about it, we also have xclaim.com, which is our website. We sell some merch, in the last few years. And then we recently did the reissues on Trust. And there's actually going to be some interesting stuff in the next few years. I'm not sure if I'll be around for it. Hopefully I will be, because I don't know if I said, but I have cancer. And hopefully these things come out, but there'll be like some type of a further look into all the records of SSD, and some type of a box set kind of thing coming out maybe. And so it should be interesting time, and Trust Records just going to keep on keeping SSD alive,
Yeah. And Al, how can the people follow you? You're on Instagram?
I'm on Instagram. We have our official band sites, SS Decontrol official. I'm Al Barile on IG and Facebook, and certainly people can, join me or join the official pages to get. Nancy usually keeps running kind of history in the life of SSD. On this date, this happened. So yeah, we've tried to do a good job of keeping the band alive, and that's definitely an important thing for what we're doing.
Al, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thank you.